Okay. All right, so we're gonna kick it off. Welcome everyone. So if you don't know me, or even if you're tired of hearing my voice on these college and power hours, my name is Jess, and I am the manager of high school programs here at Achieve Miami. I wanted to first just tell you a little bit about us. If this is the first time you're joining and you've never heard of Achieve Miami before, we are an education nonprofit organization here in Miami. We bring together students and educators from diverse backgrounds to provide educational programs that really build connection and help all students learn and grow. We believe in the power of education and connection to enrich individual lives as well as our communities. So all of our programs, everything from our civic engagement, from our music programs, our Achieve Saturdays, our Achieve Adventure Hours, and our College and Power Hour series, which you're on now, we seek not only to inform and educate, but most importantly, to instill joy and build bridges and connections as well. So the purpose of this College and Power Hour specifically, we're glad you're here, is to illuminate the various pathways that students can take post-high school to advance their education. We all know that the current landscape is an interesting one given COVID-19, but knowing what your options are for furthering your education is essential to making your education work for you. As mentioned, my name's Jess. I'm the manager of high school programs. Part of my job is to ensure that folks of the high school generation are informed and abreast of what is going on at Achieve Miami. So with that said, if you haven't signed up for our Don't Stop Achieving newsletter, please do so. This link will be in the follow-up email that you'll receive after this webinar, as well as I think Barbie's going to put it into the chat. And you'll be able to sign up quickly there. So a couple housekeeping items before we get into our conversation. All of the lines are muted. Please ask questions via the Q&A chat feature at any time. Utilize that as much as possible. We are going to try to answer questions, all the questions that we can at the end when we open up for Q&A. We have a lot of amazing panelists here, so we have a lot of information to get through and a lot of conversation to be had. So put your answers in the Q&A. Feel free to continue commenting and introducing yourself and engaging in the chat feature. This presentation will be available on our YouTube channel after this. So with that said, it is being recorded as an FYI. And you'll also receive this recording at the in the follow-up email as well, and you'll be able to view that. So here are just 6 of the amazing different pathways that one could take and that we'll be talking about today. This is not an exhaustive list of all of your options and all of the pathways available to you, but these are the ones we're going to delve into. I just want to give some framing and highlight these really quickly, and then I'll ask you to take a brief poll to express your interest in these things. So the first is the one that most people hear about, which is going straight to a 4-year institution, either going on campus or staying off campus, but going straight after high school to a 4-year college or university. Then the other option is an online degree program, whether that be a bachelor's degree program, an advanced degree program. Not many people know that you can get, advanced degree programs online. A gap year for community service. Example is City Year. Melissa Watson had that experience, is going to be speaking to that. Community college, and then going to a transfer program, doing a transfer program through community college, whether you just go to community college or take those credits and then move to a 4-year institution for the last 2 years. Ingrid has a lot of experience with that and is going to speak on that. I put postgraduate year here to let people know that that is also something that we won't get into today as deeply, but something that you can reach out to me about at any time, because that's the option that I took. I went to a boarding school for a year after high school, and that was to build up a better academic profile for myself when I applied to colleges. So that's also an option. And then we also have Mr. Alec Iverson here on our call, who has military service and can speak to that experience as well. So I am not going to dive too deeply into these things before I launch this poll, because I know our panelists will do the best job at speaking about these, and I want you to hear it from them. But as we launch this, I'd love if people would give us a little idea of what you're most interested in pursuing, or what you've thought about in the past, or maybe if we just mentioned it. So let us know what you've been thinking about. You can select more than one answer. We'll give it maybe about another 30 seconds. Cool, cool. Oh, a good number of you have heard about gap years for doing community service. That's good. I'll close this off in another 10 seconds and then show us all the results here. Cool. So I think we're sharing the results. So if everybody can see this, a lot of you have been considering the four-year institution, that traditional route of going straight to a four-year college. Online degree programs, a good number of you. I'm surprised by how many have heard of a post-grad year. None of you have mentioned military service, but who knows, after this, you might be considering. And community college transfer program, cool. Very cool. Thank you so much for engaging with this poll. We have one more poll at the end as a follow-up survey. Thank you for engaging in this one first. Cool. Okay, great. So with all of that said, I'm going to go through quick agenda for the day. It's going to be our panelist introduction. We'll go around to kind of like a round table where everyone introduces themselves and talks a little bit about what they're bringing to the table today in terms of experience, whether it's in your current role at a college or at a organization, or your past experience on a particular educational pathway. Then we're going to dive into some conversation. I have some specific questions to ask these folks, but again, type your questions into the Q&A chat box anytime, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A, answer those questions, and then we'll take a quick, very, very, very quick survey at the end. So without further ado, if we could go around the table, we could start with, I'll just go by what's on the screen here, last name alphabetical order. Ingrid, do you want to speak a little bit about yourself and what you do here at Achieve and where you're coming from?
Hey everyone, so I'm Ingrid. Most of you have seen me before at Achieve Saturdays. I'm the one that was always texting you, harassing you about coming. That's me. And I actually have been working with Achieve for about a year now. And like I said, as the Saturday program director, and actually am going to transition back into the classroom this year, starting in August. And so that's a little bit about me. I actually went to a community college for 2 years and then transferred to FIU. And that's where I completed my bachelor's degree in elementary education and my master's degree in reading K through 12.
Cool. Thanks, Ingrid. Dr. Giberson, would you like to go?
You betcha. Well, I'm Dr. Alex Garberson on formal occasions, but you're always welcome to call me Alex. I'm the Executive Director of Admissions for Purdue University Global. I have about 200 people that are dedicated to helping people just like those on the call get into college, right? We look for the person who's the right student at the right time and the right program, to be quite frank. I have a rather lengthy pathway myself that was not the direct route, I can tell you. I graduated high school in 1983, and at 17 went to college and at Sam Houston State University. And I lasted a year. It just wasn't something I wanted to do. And like many people, perhaps maturity and everything else entered into it. So I ended up working for another year and then joining the Air Force. And I traveled the globe in the Air Force. then I got out, started a business, and when the economy went south in 2009, that changed everything. And I found myself a guy who was 43 years old at that time, and not having finished that college degree. So I went back to school, found a way to do it online, and then found a love of education and never quit. So went on to achieve the master's degree, and then on to my PhD. So that's my story.
Awesome. Candace.
Hi everyone, I am Candace. Yeah, I used to be Miss Morris. Prior to this, I was an educator with Miami-Dade County Public Schools. I taught for 7 years, and I did work with Achieve Miami as well. I ran the Saturday program down south in Homestead. As of now, my new title is an academic advisor at FIU. I finally made the change. Right now, I oversee about 17 different majors for students and work with students of all ages to get them into school or to transition them from institutions, like transfer institutions, to FIU. I got my undergrad, my BS in elementary education, actually with Ingrid from FIU, and my master's in higher education from FIU, and soon to be on the table is my PhD in ed policy and leadership. So we're working on the application now in the GRE. So if you guys have any questions, I'm here.
Awesome. We're happy you're here. Justin, would you like to go?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I just wanted to thank you for having me for that. My name is Justin Penn, Director of Strategic Initiatives with Teach for America Miami-Dade. What all that means is I support the leadership and development of all those in Miami-Dade who've done Teach for America. So I support our teachers, I support those who do social entrepreneurship, et cetera. But before all that happened, my story began in Springfield, Ohio. I was a first-generation college student, grew up in a single-parent household largely, mostly absent of strong male role models. My stepfather was a drug dealer, in and out of my life to prison. In high school, I worked my tail off to help support my family as well, was very involved in sports, I was in ROTC as well, was thinking about doing the military, but then I had the chance to apply to a four-year institution to go to Georgetown University in DC, and that just opened up my eyes to the possibility that I could have in shaping our world. I'm happy to be here with all of you.
We're happy you're here as well. Melissa, last but not least.
Hi everyone, my name is Melissa. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, and I went to Pennsylvania State University and I received my bachelor's in psychology. And then after graduating college, I had a great internship working with students, and I knew that I didn't necessarily want to go into the work field, but I wanted to do a year of service. So I did City Year, which is an organization under AmeriCorps. And I had a great year of service, and then I decided to do it again here in Washington, D.C. And then now I'm working as a kindergarten educational aide in a school here in D.C.
Awesome. So I hope now that everybody's introduced themselves, our audience members are fully aware of the breadth and depth of the experience on this panel. It's so exciting to have everyone here. So I have a few general questions that I'd like to pose to the group, and then we have some specific ones depending on time as well as where this conversation goes. But I'd love to start out with, in what ways did this specific pathway that you took prepare or enable you to advance your education or your career or your life? How did it help you? What were the key ways it helped you on your path? And if we could maybe work backwards, we'll start with Melissa on that.
So like I said, I did a year of service. And during that year, I realized my passion for education. Coming out of college, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. So this year of service let me know that I wanted to work with children in a classroom. And doing City Year let me know that I wanted to work with students in small groups, so not necessarily teaching a full classroom, but I wanted to do like reading interventions. So that year of service really let me know like how I wanted to transition my career. So now I'm working on receiving my master's in early childhood education.
And could you, I'm sorry, Melissa, just really quickly and maybe like 2 or 3 sentences explain what City Year is?
Okay, so City Year is a great organization. So you can sign up. You can be from 17 to 24. You just need your high school diploma or a GED. And so we are in 38 different cities, and you are sent into a school to work with students on their behaviors or their course performances, or their attendance, because those are where students really lack. So they use us to get students to get to school, and then we really work on them to have better coping skills, social and emotional skills. And then we work in either an English classroom or a math classroom, helping those students who fall behind. We really do like small groups to help students get that extra time to, I guess, just get on grade level. And then, so it's like community service. So throughout the year, you have to get 17 hours of service. So you're going to do that within your schoolhouse, or you are doing professional development days, or you are doing different projects within the community that you serve.
Awesome. Thanks for that background, because I know when I was in high school, I had no idea what City Year was. So for those of you who don't know, now you know, and you'll learn more about it throughout this panel. Anyone else who would like to chime in? I can repeat the question too, if necessary.
So I'll jump in for a sec. The one thing that I'll say that the universities offer that really resonates deeply is critical thinking skills, and it teaches you a different mindset, a different vision on looking at not just problems, but looking at daily life that will really take you as an individual to a completely different level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I realized I promised we'd go in reverse order. So Justin, do you want to go?
Can you just repeat the question one more time? Then I'll jump right in.
The question is, like, in what specific ways did this pathway, the pathway that you took, prepare or enable you to advance your education, your career, and your life? So what did you really gain out of the experience that you wouldn't have gained otherwise?
Depends how much time you have. It's been a transformative ride. For me, I knew that I wanted to go to college largely because no one in my family had done so. That was a challenge for me, but also it was kind of isolating and lonely, knowing I had to trailblaze that path. And it was before my senior year of high school that I had the chance to work on the Obama campaign. And I was just ignited about what was going on during our time. I was fired up. I had always throughout my life wanted to help people, empower my community, and I saw that as my chance to do so. So I would tell anyone out there to really get to know what path is for you. You have to try things. You have to be able to do trial and error. You have to be able to figure things out, and you have to be willing to ask questions. Because when I went into the campaign office, it was to get a yard sign, and the person said, "You want an internship?" And I said, "What's that?" I wasn't afraid to ask the question. She said, "Sit down, let me tell you about it." And that positioned me to realize that I wanted to study political science. I literally Googled what was the best political science school, and I saw Georgetown. Went to my counselor, tried to get help, and unfortunately she said, "I've got 500 kids, just one counselor, and I can't show you." So I went to the library to Google it. It was through seeing that DC be an opportunity for me that I had the chance there to work in the United States Senate, work with the White House initiatives. And I think all that comes out of just really asking yourself the question of what are the values you believe in, and being willing to try things. Because I can tell you, I have failed quite a few times along the journey, and I imagine everyone on this panel can agree. Trial and error is part of it. But I think ultimately it comes down to you believing yourself, being okay, being a little uncomfortable, because it's in those uncomfortable moments that the magic happens.
Awesome. Yes, definitely. Candace, I know that you shared about your current role and that your current role is super relevant to this conversation, but I was wondering if you could share maybe a little bit about your educational pathway and how, again, that benefited you on your career, life, further education, etc.
I think it's important to note, like, everyone's pointing out super valid points about education. Education is not linear. You're not going to study one thing and then just jump right into that job. It's always going to be like that for some people. And I want everyone to make sure that they're mindful of that, because I work with students on a daily basis that say, "Oh, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to study biology." Might not always work out that way if you're not strong with the classes that you're taking. So it's important to note that you should be very flexible in the pathways you take to get to that final goal or destination, and be open-minded, as Alex and Justin were saying. I grew up knowing that I wanted to be a teacher because I was upset at the fact that it took me until about 10th or 11th grade to actually find a teacher that I connected with that was a person of color that really believed in my abilities, because there wasn't that much of that in my community growing up. My brother and I were one of like 6 or 7 Black kids at our elementary school, and middle school was not that different. So I knew I wanted to be like that change for other students, but I couldn't really figure out how or what I was going to do to get to that. Fast forward to graduating from college, applying to Teach for America, getting my first job, and actually being with students who identified from the same backgrounds that I do. In doing so, I made a promise to that first group of students that in some way I was going to impact their lives for college. So around the end of my first year, I applied to a program at FIU to get my master's in higher education, because I knew I wanted to create access and opportunities for students, but I don't know what that looks like yet back then. So it was a lot of me trying to problem solve things that I was seeing in my classroom and kind of hands-on experience seeing what my students were going through and what they're going to face in the future. So now I still don't have a clear goal of what I want to do or be when I grow up. As you can see, I made a giant career change 7 years after teaching. But again, it's about being flexible and kind of reflecting on yourself, like, okay, what's next? How can I get there? What can I do? Like Justin said, I might have failed at this. How can I pick up and start over? It's okay to do. We're all human. It totally happens. I think it's important to note that your education also is going to be reflective of you. It's not going to look the same. If you and your friend might major in the same thing, and you might decide to do 2 different things with it, and that's totally okay. I am proof of that with a lot of my friends. So a lot of my choices have been more of like trusting my gut. Yes, I left the classroom after 7 years. Do I cry about it secretly in my room at night? Yes. Anybody who follows my teacher Instagram will see that I miss my students. But I'm honest with myself in saying that the reason I left that profession and I'm now at FIU is because I want to impact educators on a greater level. I advise 427 students this time. Those students are mostly on teacher prep tracks. So that's 427 teachers that are going to go out into the workforce to impact their students. And I'm still waiting for my students that are coming in. They're going into their senior year now, my first group of students. So I'll be able to see them soon. So everything is kind of connecting for me. No, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I'm 30 years old. I'm not grown up yet. It's okay. You will figure this out. Give yourself some time. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up either.
Does anyone ever, like, when are you officially grown up? I'm still trying to find out.
I also, before we get to the next question, I'll stop my sharing and let people see our beautiful faces rather than just this screen. Okay, there we go. Cool. So Ingrid, did you want to provide your take?
Absolutely. So I think my experience was also very unique. I grew up in Orlando, and I went to a high school that was very diverse. And I think that both my parents are immigrants, and so the knowledge that they had of like college access and what it was going to take for me to be able to apply and attend a 4-year university was just not. They didn't know. And similar to Justin's situation, like my counselor in high school just didn't have enough capacity to be able to tell me, this is what you need to do. These are the steps that you need to take to go to a 4-year university. And so in the back of my mind, I just knew already from freshman year that, I knew that I was going to go to a community college. And so I was very involved in high school. I was part of the color guard team. I was captain. We would compete in world competitions across the world. And so I was very involved in that. I will say that I got great grades in school. But again, I didn't know. I had this idea of like where I was going, where I was headed. I just didn't know what it took to get there. And so about junior year, I started taking senior year, I took my SAT and my ACT, which most of you know that's probably really late to start taking your SATs and ACTs. But I knew that, I just need to take this test. Don't really know what it's for, but I'm going to do it, And I found out when I took my ACTs, I was 1 point away from getting a Bright Futures scholarship. And that was the last time that I could actually take my ACTs. And so right then and there, I was like, yeah, definitely going to a community college, which was fine because I was already working full time at Old Navy. I was already like a store assistant, like manager, leading like morning crews at 5 a.m. And so I already knew in the back of my head, that's what I was gonna do. And so for me, I think I don't regret going to Valencia at all, because a lot of people don't talk about this, but at a community college, I feel like the class sizes are way smaller. And I was able to get a better education, I feel, going to Valencia versus trying to stay afloat at a four-year university. And again, I was very involved in my extracurricular activities. I think my senior year I had 3 dance classes and like 3 other core classes. And so Valencia gave me the opportunity to be able to just learn a lot better, connect more to my professors, and just gain a better love for education and my own learning. And not only that, but it was also way more affordable. So I didn't have to take out any student loans. I paid my way through my community college. And I was close to home. And so realistically speaking, I was not ready to leave. And so I stayed home, I worked. I'm sure my parents were happy that I was still home. And so that's what worked out for me.
Awesome. Alex, we've heard all about these different experiences. Could you talk a little bit about what the online specifically pathway looks like, what it looked like for you, and kind of what students can expect when they go into it, specifically with Purdue University Global?
You bet. Well, Purdue University Global is one that's really made for the adult learner, right? It's made to allow you to be working, or designed with the intention of allowing you to be working and still have that freedom to be able to do everything you need to do online. You actually attend the class, and everything that you would do in a physical university, we do online. For the right student in the right program, it can be the right university. But as we've seen with everyone today, there are a million different paths, and there's not one of them that's right for 100% of us. Everybody kind of takes their own path. Our freedom that we provide is convenience. And that's what I needed, as you can imagine, as an adult learner, going back to school at 43. That was a unique thing. So when I look at the folks that are high school grads today, you know, a lot of these folks want to go in and work. And we kind of work with that scenario, and it's our niche. We do it very, very well. But we allow people to complete everything in an online and virtual world. And we've done it for a long time in this space. And I think everybody now is getting a crash course in being online, regardless of whether you're a university, a high school, or everybody else. So we're pretty proud of that fact. But what it does, for me, when I relate this directly to me, which I was amazed, by the way, at how close my story is to Justin, of all the panelists here. You know, single parent, the whole bit, broken house. I didn't maybe see that option, right? I didn't really see going to school, because I went for that first year, and then it was on me. I needed to pay for it, and you know, I couldn't do that. This again is 1984 now, so there was no online world for me to do that. It was get in your car, drive to the university, attend the classes, and move forward. Whereas the online world allowed me to work, feed my family, keep going, and keep progressing while I was going to school.
Got it. Yeah, I know when I was a high school student, I really had no idea what online learning options even looked like, or what all of these other options looked like. So it's good that our students are hearing, you know, that you can earn credits online, you can do dual enrollment, you can transfer credits from one to another depending on your life situation at one time or another. And so with that said, Candace, a specific question for you that you may or may not have insight into is, how are students at four-year institutions like FIU kind of evaluated, or you know, how are those schools looking at these students who take various pathways in terms of admission if they do want to transfer to a four-year institution?
So It depends on the institution the student's coming from. I'm only speaking from FIU because this is the experience that I do have, but I know it's similar at other institutions. If a student does come in, I always push my students to finish their AA before they come, if they're transferring from a community college or a two-year institution, because no credits can actually be taken away from a student when they're transferring those credits over. So keep that in your mind if you're going to do a two-year institution. It's also cheaper, like Ingrid said. We have equivalencies for courses where we know what course is going to be, if it comes from XYZ institution, it's going to be the equivalent of this at FIU. There's a whole system for that. But we're also flexible in the sense that if a student is bringing credits over and FIU doesn't have a course for that, the student can submit a syllabus and say, okay, this is what was covered in the course. What's the FIU equivalency? I'm part of a department of about 55 other advisors that oversee the College of Arts, Sciences, and Education. We're all very like-minded. We go out of our way for students. If you see me doing stuff now, it's because today was orientation for freshmen and I'm working still to get freshmen into classes and do equivalencies for classes. So I'm surrounded by like-minded people who are all about students and their success. So that's important to have when you're in college, of course. But we look for pathways for students to create not less work, but kind of like connect the dots for them when they're transferring things over from other institutions, because not everything is going to be the same from one school to another, especially if you're transferring out of state into another institution. The requirements will differ. Is very flexible with students and understanding. If a student has military credit that they're bringing in, we're very accepting on those credits and the equivalencies of what we can offer from FIU. I have a very strong population of veterans that are coming in, and I sit there and review their syllabus and try to figure out what I could ask someone to give them credit for so that credit's not lost. I know this is the same across the board, so it's not a big thing, but it's important that you guys advocate for yourselves as well, just in case you do encounter somebody who doesn't do this. Ask about the equivalencies for it or what the process would be to get your courses evaluated for some sort of credit at the institution that you're going to, because there's always loopholes around things and people are very forgiving on things.
Yes. And you mentioned being your own best advocate, and that's such an important skill and toolkit to develop as a high school student.
Yes.
I want to pivot a little bit to you, Justin, to ask, you mentioned that you were a first generation college student. I was also a first generation college student. And I have boatloads of advice for, I feel like I would be a cornucopia of advice for people similarly who would be going into college as a first gen student. If there was one piece of advice you'd like to share with students who are entering straight into a four-year institution with a similar background, what is that one piece of advice? Or two, we're not gonna hold you back.
Thank you for the question. I'm gonna have to take two though.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
There's so much to give there. I would say probably one of your greatest obstacles, and I mean this sincerely, is it's gonna be yourself. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable. You have to be willing that you're going to have trial and error. You're going to have to be willing to ask questions. And this leads me to my second thing. That whole university where you're at, everything around you is designed to support you. And I know, given where you may have gone to school at times, I know this was my case, I didn't always feel that I could go ask for help all the times, but I'm letting you know, you pay tuition. All of those supports there are to help you. You have an advisor who is there designed to support you. I would recommend definitely reaching out to any multicultural groups. Find your communities. You want to find support structures for you. You're going to encounter challenges. That's what life will bring you regardless of the pathways you go forward in. And I tell this to all the students. I used to teach high school at Miami Central. That's what I came through Teach for America, and I was in the Corps with Ingrid there. And I tell all my students this: what you get out of something is usually what you put into something is usually what you get out of it. Okay. Although I went to Georgetown University, I have friends that went to Georgetown that may have a great experience there. It's up to you to choose what's for you as well. There's no right or wrong answer there, but make sure you're true to you. So I would like to leave you with that.
Yes. Melissa, I wanted to pivot to you now because all of these, I feel like this is like just it's very symbolic that our conversation is like trailing along and sliding very well into the next thing that we talk about. But Justin spoke about transitions and transitioning into a new experience. And I know that with City Year, you're placed in an environment, and there are a lot of changes that you undergo in your service year. Could you speak about those and how maybe you were supported by City Year in those transitions?
Yes. So like I said, I'm from Pennsylvania. So I grew up in foster care. So I went to a lot of different high schools. So I'm kind of used to moving around, but I decided that City Year could pick where I would serve, and that was Miami. So I kind of went from Pennsylvania to Miami by myself with no help with moving. But once I got to City Year, it was just such a great support system from my manager who, just would help with housing. And then just once I got there was a lot of support with the transition of just getting around the city because I was new and I didn't have a car at the time. So it was just a lot of support with that. And then we just developed, once you're on City Year, it's like a family. My team was a family, so they were a great support system. We work long hours. You serve long hours, and it can be a lot. So there were a lot of resources that City Year gave you, whether there were late night sessions to help with if you were going to law school, if you were going to med school, or if you wanted to seek a career in education, they gave you those networking tools. There were a lot of different panels that you can attend. There were a lot of different workshops that you can go to just to further your careers. And then we just kind of just did a lot of community service outside of City Year, so we got involved within the community.
Awesome. I know that's something that, whether you're transferring to a school out of state, or Ingrid, you mentioned how, you were close to home, and that was a phenomenal option for you. And, looking back, you're like, how could any other option have worked as well as this one did? But I thank you, Melissa, for that reassurance for the students who might want to do this really badly, like want to do a community service year and just not be sure of how they would be supported in doing that. Before we open up to Q&A, which I want to do in a couple of minutes, I just want to open up a question to the floor, a couple questions to the floor. First, if anybody would want to speak about how they found out about this pathway, like if there were any individuals that you sought out, whether it be a mentor, a college counselor, one that was serving many. I know Justin had mentioned that his college counselor had like tons of students to take care of, which is unfortunately not that uncommon. But the question is, how did you find out about your pathway, and who did you seek out to help you along the way, or who was most helpful to you along the way?
Well, what a great question. I'll start off to kill the dead air. As I said, I kind of found myself in a very unique situation at that age, having to start over. So really what I did was just basic research online. And remember, this was, a while ago. So it wasn't that comprehensive. You could just get the basics. I ended up deciding to go into the online environment, again, because of the convenience. But I will say this, and I would be willing to bet that everyone on the panel would have the same type of an experience at some point in their career in academia. They met a professor that impacted them and really became someone they relied upon. I know it happened to me, and I think most people have that same experience. And it can be someone you never thought of, that opens your mind up to new ways of thinking. And that kept me on the path. One thing I would add to what Justin mentioned, which I thought was fantastic, an obstacle you're going to hit with, this is not easy. It's not easy. You got to persevere. And as he said, use the tools that are there. There's so many of them. Take advantage of them, but persevere.
I think it's also important as well, adding on to what you said, Alex, is kind of like trying to envision people that are doing a position or a role that you're interested in, and just ask them, how did you get here? What led you to this? Because that's research you can do on your own. It doesn't mean you have to do everything they've done and walk like straight into their footsteps or anything. You can create pathways to do the same thing, or maybe even get connected. One of my mentors, while I was teaching, I happened to come across, I don't even know where I met him, but he ended up working at FIU then worked with Miami-Dade County Public Schools, and I was able to do a practicum with him through my master's that I organized. And I was able to kind of see how we can bridge the gaps from K to 12 to the college setting, which I didn't see anyone else doing. And in doing that, he connected me to other people who might be doing the same thing. And I feel like had I have not just asked the question of, hey, how'd you get into what you're doing? Then I wouldn't have known, and I would probably still be a little bit lost. So don't be afraid to just ask someone and engage in conversation. We're social people, we like talking. And I guarantee someone's gonna wanna talk about themselves. So it doesn't hurt to ask them. By that same token, if you don't know who to ask, start researching what's happening in your community. See what people are doing that's on the same interest level that you're at, so that you can see what else you can do to maybe create change or create other pathways or connect you to some new ideas.
Okay, I can go. Kind of like Justin mentioned, get involved on your campus. I was the president of the Association of Black Collegians at my campus, and we did a lot of things in the community. So I then was working with, he was my boss, but he had his own nonprofit, and he served different students in the community, and it was after school program, and they had a summer program. And I was like volunteering there, and I was just like, oh, can I have an internship here? Like, not exactly like that, but it was a conversation, and I was like, I really love it here, and I really love the work that you're doing. And I really wanted to be involved, so I asked for an internship, and I ended up working there for 2 years. And then through that, another lady that worked there, she knew about AmeriCorps, and she knew about City Year, and she was like, I didn't do it, but one of my friends did it. And then she gave me like the website, and like I was able to, you know, do some research on my own and contact someone from City Year, and like that's how I started my process of serving. So it was just through networking and like finding other resources.
And I also want to add to what everybody is saying. I think everyone has mentioned like get involved. I agree 100%. When I moved and transferred over to FIU, I also joined a sorority, and Candace was actually my big sister in my sorority. And it's very unique that all of our experiences from college and being in the sorority together, we were all in the, like transitioning in this, we were transitioning the same way. So we both joined Teach for America with Justin in 2013. From there, we taught at the same school. From there, we ended up joining Achieve Miami and working together in multiple capacities. And so get involved as much as you can. Do your own research, because at least for me, I joined Teach for America just by Googling like working in urban schools in Miami, and Teach for America popped up, you know? And so just do your research and get involved and just network as much as you can.
Yeah. And all of the, like to echo what you said, Ingrid, every single person, like everyone has mentioned at some point in time how doors open when you take action and you're not afraid to ask for help, to introduce yourself, to request an informational interview with someone, to really push yourself. And you know, whether that be through your involvement here at Achieve, I know a lot of the audience members here are like really dedicated Achieve volunteers, whether that be like with the people you meet through these experiences, whether it be through something you've been exposed to and you've learned about the Miami community through your experiences at Achieve or elsewhere, and you're a problem solver and you want to solve that problem. Like taking initiative is so critical and important, and don't be afraid, because everyone else in the beginning feels super nervous about it. Even I still feel nervous about it sometimes, but taking that first, Melissa's like, but taking initiative and like putting yourself out there is so important. I see that we have some really awesome questions in Q&A, in our Q&A box. If we want to open this up to Q&A, and Barbie, do you want to read off some of the questions that we have?
Sure, would love to. I'm going to keep my video off just so that we can keep seeing our lovely speakers. But I have one question. This is for Alex. Dr. Giberson, I know you mentioned being online was better because you had a family to feed and you needed to work. However, do you think it is better to learn by being there physically and to do hands-on learning rather than just reading lectures online? So this is from Indira.
That's a great question, and there's a lot to that. I went to a university. Think about Purdue Global like this. It's a university that you do all the things that you would at a physical university. We just do them online. So there is work. Think about 180 different programs that you can get involved with. Whatever it is that is your passion can be sought after. There are clubs, organizations. I was in the military affiliated club because of my Air Force service, but that was just one group, and everyone here has said the same thing: get involved. And boy, does that sure lend itself to fact. And you'll find that the more you're involved, whether it's in the online world or in the physical world, you're still enjoying talking to other students in the same way, well, by typing or by talking, that you would if you were meeting them in person. One quick anecdote on this. I've said several times I was middle-aged going back to school. Well, when I was in the classroom, I was with people, most of them were half my age, but I found it invigorating, right? They had a different perspective than I did. And when I say you gain skills that you never really thought about, critical thinking, and opening your mind up to the thoughts of others was another one that I thought was just fantastic. But to tie it up, everything you do at a physical university, we do in the online university. It's kind of a lot of fun, and you still get to participate in all the different groups and clubs and what have you. Hope that answered it.
Great, thank you so much. So I have another question here, and this one is for Candace. Candace, do colleges prefer students who have started a community service project or have done an internship?
I wouldn't necessarily say colleges prefer one over the other. I would say it's more of how you're selling yourself on your application, your personal statement, and all that good stuff. I feel as though your internships are becoming more of a thing when you're applying to grad school. They're looking for that as like kind of a foundation for you to have your hours and your experience, specifically if you're going into the medical field or something in allied health. Overall, what I've noticed with undergrad is it's a lot about your test scores. It's a lot about the math and sciences that you've taken, your demographic that you're coming from. If you have done internships, I think it's super helpful. It might gear you towards a major or profession that you're looking at going into, but I don't want you guys to feel like you're going to be hard on yourself if you haven't done an internship, you haven't done a service project. It's okay. Again, different pathways. But if you do them, it's very good to sell them as you're applying. And then continue to build a resume. You guys should all have a resume now as being in high school, even if you're not planning on applying to a job, because that's going to help you when you're starting to apply to things in the future throughout college and any other time, and also to help you get into other organizations. So that way you can start having a list of everything you've done with your explanations of how things can relate.
I'm glad, sorry, Barbie, I'm glad you said that, Candace, because in a future College and Power Hour this summer, date TBD and details TBD, but stay tuned because we'll be working on how to make your resume pop.
Let me know when it is. I will be there and I'll be hands-on. Whatever you guys need.
Awesome, thank you. And this might be a little bit more of a specific question, so we're also happy to answer this offline via email with Indira, who asked this question, but maybe we can throw this out there and see if we can give some insight. But she asked, are there any programs in Miami-Dade for high schoolers that are related to medicine or maybe going into the medical field that you all think could help and are free or affordable?
I did a quick Google search on this. Google's my best friend. A lot of programs that looks like in Miami-Dade are being offered through high schools. I'm looking at one right now that's only limited to North Miami Beach Senior High or Homestead Senior High School, which I didn't know about. I should share this with Homestead students. But it's called Health Careers Opportunity Program, and they work with Miami-Dade College and students in particular majors. So I would say that you should do a quick search if your school does not offer any like clubs or organizations that you can be a part of, just to see what school you can be, what you can become a part of based on the school you're at. And Indira, I don't know what school you go to, I'm very sorry. But if you're looking for opportunities, your first place to start, I believe, would be your counselor. And I know it's hard because we're remote right now. See what they know about, if there's any opportunities for that. And then it doesn't hurt to cold call the institution that you might be looking at going to. Hey, do you guys have any opportunities for students or prospective students to get involved? It doesn't hurt to ask. I think that's two helpful things.
Yes, thank you so much for that insight. And that's that on the Q&A, Jess. So I wanted to hand it off back to you.
Sure, thanks, Barbie. And please continue to put your questions in the Q&A. We had 3 really good ones. Wow, girl pulling through. But we record this Q&A, so if you ask any questions at the very end, we'll still be able to, we can forward that question to whoever you're asking, and we can follow up. I know we've shared a lot of words of wisdom in these last couple minutes. I wanted to just pose this final question. What would you say, and we can go around the table just very quickly, what would you say to a high school student who is unsure about what they should do next? I'm making it very difficult for everybody.
I would say, you know, and I heard someone say this to me when I was in high school, and it's true. I'm 29 and I'm still not fully sure what I want to do. However, what I can say though is, as long as you treat life like a conversation, as a journey where you're going to have ups and downs, you're going to have many experiences. But if you put yourself out there, that's where you're able to have the experience for growth. That's where you're going to surprise yourself. And that's where you're going to illuminate.
Yeah, I would also add to that, don't be afraid to explore. You know what I mean? Just get out and look, because in many ways, when it comes to education, whether it's online or in person or anything else, the journey can be a big part of that destination.
Yeah, I also want to add that the advantages of going to a community college first is, regardless, you still need to complete all of your gen ed requirements. And so for those first 2 years, you can play around and get electives geared towards whatever you want. And so mine were all towards education, but I could have taken a class or 2 in whatever it is, political science, whatever it is that I wanted to do. And so that's also the benefit of going to a community college is it's affordable. You're not, you know, spending thousands of dollars in one course, and you can experience and try different courses. I also, before we transitioned to someone else, I had a big buddy called Julian Marquez actually send me information about a school here in Miami. It's called School for Advanced Studies. It's actually located at 5 of the Miami-Dade College campuses. And it's pretty much a full-time dual enrollment high school, and it was initiated in 88, 89. And so you combine Miami-Dade County Public Schools and Miami-Dade College, and the kids that attend there complete their last 2 years of high school while attending MDC. And they graduate with both a high school diploma and an associate's in arts degree from Miami-Dade College. And so if you guys are also interested in that, do your research on School for Advanced Studies. We have a whole bunch of big buddies that actually attend, and I've heard great things about it.
Just to echo what Ingrid's saying, the advisor in me needs to remind all of you high school students that when you're doing dual enrollment, those credits that you're taking at that institution start off your GPA at that college. For example, if you're doing dual enrollment at Miami-Dade and you get all A's in your courses, you got a 4.0, your first semester, that's your first GPA. On the other side, you fail your courses and you have a 2.5, a 1.2, that is your GPA that you're starting with. So please, 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 I urge you to take everything seriously. SAS is a great opportunity. And I've seen so many of my students coming over to FIU do well and only complete credit 61 to 120 to get their BS or their BA. So please take things seriously, because that's a wonderful opportunity and it's going to save you a lot of money.
I guess my advice would be to enjoy your process. It'll be different from everyone else's. Mine is very different from my friends. Just enjoy it. It'll be different. And my second advice would be to network. Invest in yourselves, network. If you're unsure, there are people in your community that want to help you. So reach out to people, do your own research, have those conversations, put yourself out there. I'm still doing it at 27. It still makes me nervous. But just, I've received all of my opportunities, my jobs from networking, from conversations, putting myself out there, giving my people I know my resume. So just have a great resume and invest in yourself and enjoy your process.
Yeah, what a note to end on. Enjoy your process, my Lord. Couldn't be a more appropriate way to conclude the Q&A portion and the panelist portion of this conversation. I'm going to start sharing my screen again, but I just wanted to thank you all so much for being here and for joining in on this conversation. The nuggets of wisdom and thoughts and advice that you all shared are so important and so helpful to all of these students. And I know that certainly in this conversation, I learned a lot more about the pathways that you took, as well as, gain some insight into the future things that I might want to do. Again, education never stops, learning never stops. Enjoy your entire process all the way through. So thank you so much for being here. I do want to note, and Ingrid, I'm so glad that you brought up School for the Advanced Studies, SAS, because you're going to be receiving a follow-up email after this that will include just a little tidbit about each of these experiences, like a little bit more about City Year and what that is and how you can check that out, a little bit more about Purdue University Global, what that is, how you can check that out, just as a very thorough follow-up on this conversation. And I wanted to note a couple things. So if you're still interested in volunteering with us, we've had a lot of engagement. Please feel free to fill out our Big Buddy Virtual Enrichment final application if you're interested in hosting a virtual enrichment opportunity. If you have more questions about what that is, feel free to respond to the follow-up email that I send and ask me about it, and I'll point you in the right direction or give you a little tidbit of what this is. And finally, I just want to highlight an upcoming College Empower Hour that we're having next week. It is with Engage Miami. Justin Penn's like, yes. Justin Penn is you're on the board of Engage Miami, correct? And yep, and he's been involved with them. They're a great group. They're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization here in Miami that mobilizes young voters and educates young folks about the importance of voting and being civically engaged. We're going to be doing all of that stuff next week in our College Empower Hour about take action civic engagement with Engage Miami. You can register here. We have a QR code as well as the registration link. Don't worry, that will be in your follow-up email as well. And then finally, I wanted to highlight on the 16th, we are going to be doing a Bringing Compassion to Action community wellness session with Randy Schwartz. And this will specifically focus on connecting with yourself and others to optimize your well-being. This isn't a College Empower Hour, but it is open to the entire Achieve Miami community and family. And so I very much encourage you to check that out. In fact, after you leave this webinar, you should be directed directly to this registration page that you can just put your information in and register and get that link so you can join on the 16th. With that said, I'm going to once again thank you so much. A big virtual round of applause. Be very quiet, but everybody's clapping, to our panelists. And I'm going to share this little poll. I'm going to be sticking around on this Zoom call right here, but you're free to go after you fill out the poll. Here we go, launch poll. This will help us ensure the best possible experience in future College Empower Hours. Panelists, you're amazing. Thank you. I'll be sticking around, but I hope to see everyone next week at our Civic Engagement College Empower Hour, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.